The marketplace was alive with sound. Traders shouted the prices of their goods, strange creatures barked and hissed in cages, and the smell of roasted meat mixed with sharp metallic air. Lights blinked from neon signs above every stall, while alien children ran between the legs of busy buyers. It was the kind of place where everyone minded their own business, and no one cared about the weak. Through the crowd walked an old alien. His back was bent, his skin pale, and his clothes looked like they had not been washed in weeks. His eyes moved nervously as if expecting someone to push him aside. In his trembling hands, he held a small basket. Inside were only a few items: half a loaf of bread, some dried fruit, and a cracked water flask. For others, this was nothing, but for him, it was everything. He reached a stall with glowing shelves full of food. The merchant behind it, a fat alien with sharp yellow teeth, glared down at him. The old alien placed his basket carefully on the counter and pulled out a thin credit chip. His hand shook as he tried to insert it into the reader. The machine beeped, then flashed red. Declined. The merchant sneered. No credits, no food. His voice was loud enough for others around to hear. Some aliens turned to look, smirking at the sight of the weak old man failing to pay. The old alien tried again, his lips whispering in panic, but the result was the same. Rejected. Out! The merchant shouted, his thick hand knocking the basket to the ground. The bread rolled into the dirt, and the dried fruit scattered. The crowd laughed. The old alien dropped to his knees, picking up the food with shaking hands. His eyes filled with shame as the crowd began to whisper. Some mocked him, some just watched with cold eyes, enjoying his humiliation. No one offered help. 2 guards in metal armor stepped forward. They were large, with electric batons hanging from their belts. One of them grabbed the old alien by the shoulder. You know the law. No credits means no purchase. Beggars don't belong here. The old alien struggled weakly, his voice trembling. Please, just this once. I need food. I will pay when. The guard pushed him hard, and he fell against the dirt floor. The baton sparked, ready to strike. The merchant waved his hand. Throw him out. He's wasting everyone's time. The marketplace grew quieter. All eyes were on the scene. Some aliens laughed, others shook their heads, but no one moved to stop it. It was normal here. The weak were discarded. The guards prepared to drag him away, and the old alien closed his eyes. He knew what was coming. Then, a calm voice broke the noise. I'll pay his bill. The words were simple, but they froze everyone. The guards turned their heads. The merchant paused, and the crowd fell silent. A human stood there. His clothes were simple, just a traveler's jacket, but his presence was strange. Humans were rare in this city. Most were ignored or distrusted. The human stepped closer, pulling out his own credit chip. His face showed no fear. He did not look at the crowd or the guards. He only looked at the old alien. How much does he owe? The merchant narrowed his eyes, almost offended. This is not your business, human. Let him starve. It's what he deserves. The human did not argue. He placed his chip on the counter, and the machine beeped green. Payment complete. The basket's food was restored, glowing numbers confirming the transaction. Gasps spread through the crowd. Whispers followed. Did you see? The human paid for him? Some were confused, others angry. It was not common for anyone to interfere, especially not for a worthless old alien. The guards lowered their batons slowly, uncertain now. The merchant growled, but he could not deny the payment. The food was bought. The old alien looked up, his eyes wide. His lips trembled, but no words came. No one had helped him for years. Not a single soul. Yet this stranger, this human, had stepped forward without hesitation. The human bent down and offered his hand. The old alien hesitated, then slowly took it. His hand was frail, cold, but the human pulled him gently to his feet. You don't owe me anything, the human said softly, almost like a whisper meant only for the old alien. The guard stepped back, still watching. The merchant spat on the ground, muttering curses under his breath, but he could do nothing more. The law was clear. Payment meant the purchase was valid. The old alien clutched his basket tightly, his hands still shaking. Around them, the crowd began to move again, but the whispers did not stop. Eyes followed them. The image of a human helping an outcast burned in their minds. The old alien's heart pounded. He wanted to thank the human, to ask why, but the words stuck in his throat. All he could do was walk beside him, away from the stall, away from the laughter. But as they moved deeper into the marketplace, shadows stirred. Hidden eyes watched from the edges. This act, this kindness, would not be forgotten. The old alien knew it. The human did not yet understand, but trouble was coming. The marketplace noise returned, but for those two figures, one bent and broken, the other calm and strong, the world had shifted. A line had been crossed, and there was no turning back. The old alien walked slowly through the crowded streets, clutching the basket of food as if it might vanish at any second. His steps were weak, his back bent more than before, but his eyes kept glancing at the human beside him. He could not believe what had just happened. No one had ever stepped forward for him, not once in years. Yet this stranger, this human, had given his credits without hesitation. The human walked calmly, as if nothing unusual had taken place. His jacket was plain, dusty from travel, but he moved with quiet confidence. He carried no weapon in sight, yet there was something about the way he walked, steady, balanced, that made others step aside. "Why did you do it?" the old alien finally whispered, his voice almost lost in the noise of the marketplace. The human looked at him. His eyes were steady, clear, and without mockery. "Because you needed help." The old alien's throat tightened. Simple words, yet they felt heavier than all the years of silence he had endured. He wanted to argue, to say it was dangerous, to warn him, but his heart would not let him. Instead, he nodded and kept walking. Behind them, whispers followed. Merchants shook their heads, guards muttered to each other, and bystanders exchanged sharp glances. A human showing kindness to an outcast alien was not something the city would ignore. In the alleys, dark shapes lingered, their eyes tracking every move. When they reached the edge of the marketplace, the old alien stopped. He leaned against a broken wall, trying to catch his breath. His hands shook as he held out the bread. "Please, take this. It is the least I can give back." The human shook his head. "It's yours. You need it more." Tears welled in the alien's tired eyes. He pressed the food to his chest, not from hunger, but from the weight of the gesture. He had lived so long unseen, treated like dirt, that even the smallest kindness felt overwhelming. But before he could speak again, heavy footsteps echoed. The two guards from the marketplace appeared, their armor clinking. They did not raise their batons, but their faces showed anger. "You should not have done that, human," one of them growled. "This city does not welcome outsiders meddling in its order." The human did not flinch. He stepped in front of the old alien, his voice calm. "He paid. The food is his. That is the law, isn't it?" The second guard sneered. "The law, yes, but the merchants write the law, and they don't like what you did." The old alien gripped the human's sleeve, his voice shaking. "Please, let them be. Don't fight. They will punish you." The human turned his head slightly, his eyes still locked on the guards. "I don't fear punishment for doing the right thing." The guards glared, but after a long moment, they stepped back. One pointed a finger. "This isn't over. You will regret siding with him." They left, their armor clattering as they disappeared into the street. The air felt colder after they were gone. The old alien's knees nearly gave way, and he sat down heavily on a stone step. "You do not understand," he whispered. "They will not forget this. They will not forgive it. You should leave this city before it is too late." The human crouched beside him. "Why? For paying a bill?" The old alien's eyes darted around, making sure no one was listening. His voice dropped lower. "No one helps me, not because they cannot, but because they are afraid. The merchants hate me. The guards despise me. They have reasons you do not know, and now you have placed yourself in their anger too." The human studied him quietly. "Then tell me, why do they hate you so much?" The old alien hesitated. His hands clenched around the bread until it almost crumbled. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The truth burned in his chest, but fear locked it away. Finally, he shook his head. "It is better if you do not know. Better for you and for me." The human didn't press him. He simply stood, offering his hand again. The old alien stared at it, then slowly took it. His hand trembled, but the warmth of the grip gave him strength he thought he had lost forever. They walked further away, leaving the noise of the market behind. But the streets were not safe. From the shadows, figures followed, silent, patient, waiting for the right moment. The human sensed it, his eyes flicking to every corner, but he said nothing. The old alien finally spoke again, his voice broken. "For years, I have lived invisible. They spit on me, strike me, call me worthless. I learned to keep my head down, to survive without hope. And then you change everything with just one act. Why? Why would you risk yourself for someone like me? The human's reply was steady, almost too simple. Because someone has to. The words hung in the air like a spark in the dark. The old alien lowered his head, his heart heavy with both gratitude and dread. He knew this act would echo through the city. The merchants would not let it pass. The guards would not stay silent, and those in the shadows would soon move. The human walked beside him, calm as ever, as if unaware of the storm gathering. The old alien knew better. Trouble was coming. He could feel it in the air, in the silence between footsteps, in the whispers carried by the wind. For the first time in years, he was not alone. And for the first time in years, he feared not for himself, but for the stranger who had chosen to stand with him. The streets were darker now, shadows stretching long as the evening lights flickered alive. Lanterns burned with a dim glow, and neon signs buzzed weakly over empty shops. The old alien walked slower than before, his steps heavy. He kept glancing behind them, fear twisting his tired face. The human noticed, but said nothing. His eyes scanned every corner, every rooftop, like a soldier who had learned to trust his instincts. They turned into a narrow alley where broken pipes dripped foul-smelling water. The old alien stopped suddenly, clutching the basket tight to his chest. His voice shook. "They are following us." The human did not look back. He spoke calmly, his tone steady. "I know." The old alien's eyes widened. His breath came fast. "Then why do you keep walking? They will strike soon. They will not forgive what you did in the market." The human kept moving forward. "If they want to strike, let them show themselves. Better here than among the crowd." The old alien almost dropped the basket in fear. He wanted to run, but his legs could not carry him fast enough. His hands trembled as he whispered, "You don't understand. The merchants, they own this city. They own the guards. They own everything. If they have marked you, there is no escape." The human finally turned his head, his eyes sharp, his jaw firm. "Then let them come." The old alien stared at him, shocked by the calmness. He could not understand how anyone could face such danger with no fear. His heart pounded, and his thoughts swirled back to memories of when he was younger, when he too had once stood up against powerful men and lost everything. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a soft scrape of metal on stone. From the shadows ahead, 3 figures stepped out. Their eyes glowed faintly, their skin marked with tattoos of the merchant guilds. Each carried a weapon, curved knives that gleamed in the dim light. Behind them, 2 more blocked the way back. The old alien froze, clutching his basket tighter. His knees buckled, and he whispered, "It's them, the guild's enforcers." The man in front sneered, his voice harsh. "Human, you made a mistake today. Paying for that worthless beggar was an insult to the guild, and insults are punished." The human stood still, his body relaxed but ready. He needed food. That is no crime. The enforcer laughed. "In this city, kindness is the greatest crime of all." The old alien shivered, his chest tight. He wanted to beg, to plead, to tell them it was all his fault, but no words came. Fear locked his throat. The first enforcer pointed his knife at the human. "Leave the old one, walk away, and maybe we let you live." The human shook his head slowly. "No." The enforcers exchanged glances. They were used to fear, to begging, to weakness. This calm defiance unsettled them. The leader growled and took a step closer. "Then you die with him." Before the old alien could even cry out, the first enforcer lunged. The knife flashed in the air. The human moved quickly, sidestepping, his hand striking the attacker's wrist with sharp precision. The knife clattered to the ground. In one smooth motion, the human's elbow slammed into the enforcer's chest, sending him crashing against the wall. The other 2 rushed forward. The old alien stumbled back, some nearly dropping his basket. His eyes widened as he watched the human fight. There was no panic in his movements, only skill and control. He caught one attacker's arm, twisting it until the man screamed, then kicked the other square in the stomach, sending him sprawling into the dirt. The leader staggered to his feet, rage burning in his eyes. "Kill him!" he roared. The 2 blocking the alley rushed in, blades raised. For a moment, the old alien thought it was over, but the human ducked low, catching a pipe on the wall and swinging himself sideways. His boot crashed into one enforcer's head. The second swung his blade wildly, but the human caught his wrist, forcing the knife away, then slammed his fist into the man's jaw. The fight was fast, brutal, and one-sided. Within moments, all five lay groaning in the dirt, their knives scattered, their pride broken. The human stood over them, breathing steady, not a scratch on him. The old alien stared, his heart pounding. He had expected the human to die. Instead, he had watched him move like a trained warrior, every strike perfect, every movement sure. The enforcer leader spat blood and hissed, "You don't know what you've done, human. The guild will crush you. No one defies them and lives." The human's eyes hardened. "Then they'll learn I'm not no one." The old alien trembled, torn between fear and hope. He could not understand this man. Who was he? Why would he risk so much for a stranger? He felt both gratitude and dread burning in his chest. The human turned to him, extending a hand once more. "Come. It's not safe here." The old alien took the hand, his grip weak but desperate. They stepped over the groaning enforcers and disappeared into the dark streets. But in the shadows above, more eyes watched. Whispers spread like fire through the city. A human had struck the guild. A human had stood for the beggar. The news would reach every corner before sunrise. The old alien's voice broke as they walked. "You don't understand what storm you've started." The human glanced at him, calm as ever. Maybe it's a storm that needed to come. The old alien lowered his head, torn between fear for his life and a spark of something he thought he had lost long ago: hope. The night was heavy with silence as they reached a small, abandoned courtyard. Broken walls surrounded the place, and weeds pushed through the cracks in the stone. The old alien sat on a fallen pillar, his chest rising and falling fast, clutching his basket as if it were his last treasure. The human stood near the entrance, eyes watching the shadows, listening for any sound of pursuit. For a long time, neither spoke. The old alien's hands trembled. He had seen many things in his long life, but never had anyone fought for him like that. Never had anyone risked their life against the guild's enforcers. Finally, his voice came out weak and broken. "You should not have done it. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they can do." The human looked at him, his face calm. "Then tell me, why do they hate you so much?" The old alien lowered his head, eyes full of shame. For years he had hidden his story, burying it under silence. To speak of it was dangerous, but to keep it locked inside felt like a weight crushing his soul. His voice cracked. "I was once not like this. I was not a beggar. I was not a man people spat on. I was a scientist, respected, honored. My work was known beyond this city." The human stepped closer, listening carefully. The old alien's voice grew firmer, though pain laced every word. "I created something powerful. It was a system that could give free energy to anyone. No cost, no control by the guilds. It could have lifted millions out of poverty. I wanted to give it freely, to help all." He stopped, his hands shaking harder now. His eyes grew dark with memories. But the guilds saw only profit slipping from their hands. They told me to stop. They demanded I sell my design to them so they could control it. I refused. I said no. That one word destroyed my life. The human's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, letting the alien continue. They branded me a traitor. They spread lies. They said my work was dangerous, unstable. They destroyed my lab, burned my notes, erased my name from every record. Friends turned away. My students were threatened until they denounced me. Everything was taken. Everything. His voice broke, and he buried his face in his hands. And I was left here, forgotten, unwanted, treated as less than dirt. The human crouched down, his voice steady but low. "And yet you still live. You survived all this." The old alien laughed bitterly, a dry sound. "Survived? This is not life. This is waiting for death. The only reason they allow me to crawl in the dirt is because I am no threat now. But if they ever knew I still remember my work, if they thought I could rebuild it, they would kill me without hesitation." The human studied him carefully. "Do you still remember it? The system?" The old alien froze. His lips parted, but no sound came. His eyes flicked to the shadows, as if the walls themselves might be listening. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Yes, every detail is burned in my mind. I dream of it every night. But to build it again would bring war. The guilds would never allow it. They would slaughter anyone who stood in the way." The human's eyes did not waver. Then maybe that is why they must be challenged. The old alien shook his head furiously. "You don't understand. You are human. You can leave this city. You can escape. I cannot. My blood, my face, they mark me. If I try to stand again, they will crush me and everyone near me. Even you. You should walk away now while you still can. But the human's voice grew harder, like steel under pressure. I don't walk away from what's right. The old alien's breath caught. He stared at the human, trying to understand him. The words echoed in his ears, filling him with something he had not felt in years. Hope. It terrified him. He looked down at his hands, at the basket of bread and dried fruit, and tears blurred his vision. Do you know what I thought today before you came? I thought I would die in that market. Beaten by guards, mocked by the crowd, discarded like trash, and no one would care. That would be the end of me. He looked up, his voice trembling. But you stood, you a stranger, a human. Why? The human's gaze was steady. Because someone had to, and because you deserve more than to die in the dirt. The old alien pressed a hand over his chest as if holding in the storm inside him. He wanted to argue, to say it was useless, but the words would not form. For the first time in decades, a spark glowed in his heart. A dangerous spark, but one he could not put out. Silence fell between them again, heavy and deep. The wind whistled through the broken courtyard, carrying the smell of rust and dust. In the distance, faint footsteps echoed, reminding them that the city never truly slept. The old alien whispered finally, almost to himself, if they learn what you did for me, they will come again, stronger, and next time, they will not stop with just threats. The human stood, his figure tall against the dim light. Then let them come. We'll face them together. The old alien closed his eyes, torn between fear and faith. He had once lost everything because he dared to stand against greed. Now, beside him, stood someone who was willing to fight again. Not for profit, not for power, but for the simple truth that kindness mattered. He clutched the bread tightly, as if it were a symbol of more than survival. His heart beat fast, heavy with dread and something else, something that felt almost like courage returning. For the first time, he wondered if the guilds were not as untouchable as they believed. For the first time, he wondered if perhaps hope had not truly died after all. The next morning, the market was quieter than usual. The early sun barely reached between the tall, twisted buildings. Stalls were half empty, and the few vendors who stayed watched the streets nervously, their eyes flicking to every shadow. The old alien moved slowly through the narrow alleys, his back bent and his hands clutching his worn basket. He tried to keep calm, but every step felt heavier than the last. The human followed close behind, careful to stay just out of sight of anyone who might recognize them. He watched the old alien with concern. Even after yesterday's rescue, he could see how fragile the old alien had become. Time, fear, and pain had worn him down, leaving him small in both body and spirit. Yet, there was a fire hidden deep inside, a flicker of something that refused to die. As they passed a corner, a group of young enforcers appeared, their boots clanging against the stone. They carried long rods, and their faces were cruel, young, and impatient. They looked around the market like predators, searching for prey. The old alien froze. His eyes widened, and his breath came fast. He wanted to run, but his legs trembled under him. The human stepped forward, placing himself between the old alien and the enforcers. "We are not looking for trouble," he said calmly, but his voice carried authority. "Let us pass." The tallest enforcer sneered, stepping closer. "Why should we let anyone pass? This market is ours. Everyone pays respect or leaves." The human's eyes narrowed. "Respect is earned by kindness, not fear, and I am not leaving anyone behind." The enforcer laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the empty streets. "You, a human? You think you can stand here and talk to us? You are nothing. Leave, or face the consequences." The old alien trembled behind the human. He had faced such threats before, alone, and he knew the result. Pain, humiliation, and fear. But now, with someone at his side, he felt something he hadn't felt in decades: protection. The human took a deep breath and reached into his coat. The enforcers stiffened, unsure what he might do. Instead of a weapon, he pulled out a small, glowing device. "This," he said, holding it up, "is payment for yesterday. The old alien owes nothing, and anyone who tries to harm him will answer to me." The enforcers paused, eyes flicking between the device and the human. They did not understand its power, only that it carried authority far beyond their own. The tallest enforcer growled and stepped back, signaling his group to do the same. The human did not smile. He waited until they moved on, then turned to the old alien. "You see?" he said softly. "You are not alone anymore. You do not have to face them by yourself." The old alien's hands shook as he touched the device. It was small, but it felt heavy with weight, with meaning. He looked at the human, his eyes full of disbelief and gratitude. I do not know how to repay you, he said, voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to repay me, the human said. But you must survive. You must keep your mind, your work, and your hope alive. That is enough. The old alien nodded, still uncertain if he could trust it. But something inside him had changed. The fire he thought had died now burned brighter, fed by the human's courage. He realized that survival was not enough. He needed to reclaim his dignity, his purpose, and perhaps even his life. As they moved deeper into the market, the old alien noticed small changes. A vendor smiled at him briefly, another nodded silently. Rumors must have spread about the human who defended him. For the first time in years, he felt eyes on him, not with contempt, but with curiosity, or maybe respect. They reached a small tea stall, one tucked into a shadowed corner. The human gestured for the old alien to sit. Steam rose from small cups, carrying the faint smell of herbs and spices. The old alien sank into the chair, exhausted but alert. His hands rested on the table, trembling slightly, while the human poured tea into their cups. This place, the human said quietly, is a start. You can rest, gather your thoughts, and plan your next steps. The old alien nodded again, grateful for even this small comfort. He took a sip of the hot tea, and the warmth spread through his chest, steadying him. The human watched him carefully, knowing the moment was fragile. The guilds were still out there, still dangerous, still determined to crush anyone who defied them. Tell me about your work, the human said, leaning forward. What you created and why it matters. The old alien's eyes widened at the question. It had been years since anyone asked him about his work without suspicion or greed. His hands trembled as he began to explain, slowly, carefully, every detail he could remember. The human listened, asking questions, challenging assumptions, encouraging ideas. The old alien felt alive again, as if a weight he had carried for decades was finally lifting. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the city. The market, once full of danger and fear, seemed a little less oppressive. The old alien realized that for the first time in many years, he could imagine the future, not just a day of survival, but days of hope, action, and change. The human sipped his tea quietly, watching him. You are not just an old alien, he said softly. You are someone who can make a difference, and I will help you, whatever it takes. The old alien's chest swelled with a strange mix of fear and hope. He looked at the human, really looked, and for the first time in decades, he felt something stronger than despair, a sense of purpose. He had survived this long, and now, with the human at his side, he might just reclaim everything he had lost. The city was still dangerous, and the guilds were not finished. But as the old alien took another sip of tea, he understood one thing clearly. He no longer faced the world alone. And that simple truth was more powerful than anything the guilds could ever take from him. The streets were quieter now, but tension still hung in the air. The old alien moved carefully, his steps slow and deliberate. He kept his basket close, but inside it carried nothing of value, only a few scraps of food he hoped would last another day. Every shadow made him flinch, every distant footstep sent his heart racing. He had been here before, alone, and the memories were bitter. Pain, humiliation, and fear had followed him like a shadow for decades. The human stayed close, silent but alert. He had watched the old alien struggle for years, though he had only just met him yesterday. Seeing him so small, fragile, yet still trying to survive, filled the human with a strange determination. He would not let these enforcers, these young and cruel guards, intimidate him or the old alien again. He had already paid the bill once. Now he wanted to make sure the old alien could move safely, freely, without fear. Ahead, the market stretched into a narrow alley lined with small stalls and crates. The sun's light barely reached this part of the city. It was perfect for ambushes. The old alien's eyes darted around, noting each shadow, every figure that seemed too still. He whispered under his breath, "They are waiting. I can feel it." The human nodded slightly. "Then we move carefully. Stay close to me." They stepped forward, their movements cautious. The market was empty, or it seemed so. Suddenly, a figure darted out from behind a stack of crates, a young enforcer carrying a rod. He swung it, aiming for the old alien. The human acted instantly, grabbing the enforcer's arm and twisting it. The young guard yelped, dropping the rod, and fell to the ground. The old alien froze, unsure whether to run or stay. His legs trembled, but he trusted the human. The human motioned for him to move. They kept going, weaving through the narrow alley, hearts pounding. The enforcers were fast, but the human was faster, and he had learned the patterns of the market from observing yesterday. As they turned a corner, another enforcer stepped into their path. This one was taller, stronger, and his eyes gleamed with malice. "Stop right there," he shouted. "This alley is ours. Pay respect, or suffer the consequences." The human stood firm. "We are not looking for trouble, but we will defend ourselves. Let the old alien pass." The enforcer sneered. "You think words can save you? You are weak. The old alien is mine. He owes the guild, and you cannot change that." The old alien felt his chest tighten. Fear gripped him like iron bands. For decades, he had lived under this same rule: owe, pay, or suffer. Every debt, every punishment had shaped his life. But now, something inside him shifted. He looked at the human beside him, calm and strong. The human's eyes carried a promise. No harm would come to him while he was here. The human reached into his coat again, showing the small glowing device. Its light was soft, almost gentle, but it carried authority. "I have paid his debt," the human said firmly. "No one will touch him. Leave us alone." The enforcer's face twisted with anger, but he hesitated. The device's power was unlike anything he had ever seen. It hummed softly, a low sound that seemed to vibrate in the air, commanding respect. The enforcer cursed under his breath, then motioned to his companions to step back. The old alien exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. His knees felt weak, but he managed to stand tall, even if only a little. He touched the human's arm, a silent gesture of gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, voice trembling. I do not know how to repay you." "You do not need to repay me," the human said. "Survive. Keep your mind and your work alive. That is enough." The old alien nodded, understanding that survival itself had become a gift. He had spent decades in fear, and now, for the first time, he could imagine life differently. Not just survival, but freedom. The human had given him that chance. They continued through the alley, careful to avoid attention. Small things began to change. A vendor peeked out from behind a stall and gave a brief nod. Another watched silently, but did not shout or call for the enforcers. Word must have spread about the human who protected the old alien. For the first time in years, the old alien felt a spark of respect, or at least curiosity, from those around him. They stopped near a small food stall tucked into the shadows. Steam rose from pots, carrying the scent of spices and herbs. The human gestured for the old alien to sit. He placed a few coins on the counter, enough to buy a meal, and the vendor smiled faintly as he handed over a small plate of food. The old alien sat down, exhausted but alert. He held the plate in his hands, savoring the simple warmth it offered. The human watched him carefully, ensuring no one disturbed them. "Eat slowly," he said. "You need strength." The old alien nodded and took a small bite. The food was simple, but it carried a comfort he had not felt in decades. He looked around at the market, seeing it with new eyes. Danger was still present, but hope had begun to grow alongside it. The human leaned forward. "Tell me about your work," he said quietly. "What you created and why it matters." The old alien hesitated, then began to speak. His voice was weak at first, but it grew stronger as he recalled every detail. For the first time in years, someone listened without judgment, without suspicion. The human asked questions, encouraged him, and treated his work as valuable. As he spoke, the old alien felt a new determination rising. He had survived decades of hardship, but now he could see a future where he was more than just an old alien in a harsh market. He could be respected. He could reclaim his life. The human nodded quietly, understanding the significance. "You are not just surviving," he said. "You are starting again, and I will help you." The old alien felt something he had not felt in decades: hope. The streets were still dangerous, the enforcers still threatened, but for the first time, he was not alone. And that made all the difference. The old alien sat on the worn wooden bench outside the market, the human standing protectively by his side. The day was ending, and a soft orange glow painted the streets, giving everything a strange warmth. For the first time in decades, the old alien felt safe. His basket was lighter now, filled with simple food he could eat without fear. He looked around cautiously, expecting trouble, but none came. The enforcers were gone, at least for now. The human crouched down to speak quietly. We need to move before night falls. The alleys are dangerous then. The old alien nodded, slowly standing with a creak in his legs. His joints protested, but he ignored the pain. He had lived a lifetime of fear and suffering, and a little discomfort from age did not matter. Every step he took now felt like a small victory. They walked through the market streets, avoiding the brighter areas where patrols often lingered. The stalls were closing, vendors shouting their last sales, the clatter of crates and carts echoing through the alleys. The old alien's eyes flicked nervously, watching each corner, each shadow. He had survived so long by being careful, by hiding, by knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Yet now, he felt something different. A strange, heavy, but comforting sense of trust. He trusted the human beside him. "Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight?" the human asked. The old alien shook his head. "No, not really. I always sleep where I can, on benches, under stairways, anywhere safe enough. But I fear the guards at night." His voice was soft, almost breaking. They never forgive debt. They never forget." The human placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Then you stay with me tonight. You will not be alone. Not anymore." The old alien blinked, surprised. No one had offered him that before. No one had ever truly cared. Most people avoided him, ignored him, or looked down on him. But this human, he spoke words that felt like warmth in the cold emptiness of the alien's life. They continued walking until they reached a narrow corridor behind the market. It was empty, quiet, and dimly lit. The human unlocked a small door, revealing a tiny room with just enough space for two. Simple but safe. The old alien stepped inside slowly, taking in the small comforts, a clean floor, a soft mat, a small basin of water. It was more than he had ever had at once. "Sit," the human said kindly, gesturing to the mat. "Rest your legs. I will get you something to eat." The old alien lowered himself carefully, his body aching but grateful. He watched the human move around the small room with purpose, bringing a simple meal: some bread, a few slices of fruit, and water. He had never had someone care enough to prepare food for him. He hesitated for a moment, then began to eat slowly, savoring every bite. As he ate, the old alien began to speak. I do not know why you helped me. No one ever has." His voice was quiet, almost ashamed. "I have spent my life hiding, avoiding trouble. I thought survival was all I could hope for." The human sat beside him, listening. Sometimes survival is the first step, but it does not have to be the last. You have knowledge, skill, and courage. That matters. That makes a difference. You are not just surviving. You can live fully if you choose. The old alien paused, considering the words. For so long, he had believed he had no value, that his life was only a string of debts and mistakes. Yet the human looked at him with respect, with belief. It was almost overwhelming, but it stirred something long forgotten: hope. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then the human spoke again. "Tomorrow, we go to the main square. There are people there who can help you, who will see your work, your life, differently. You will not have to hide anymore." The old alien's eyes widened. The main square was dangerous, full of busy streets, watchers, and forcers, but the human's calm voice gave him courage. He nodded slowly. I will try. I will go." The human smiled faintly. "Good. You will not be alone. I will be there with you." Night began to fall outside, and the streets grew quiet. The sounds of the market faded, replaced by distant city hums and the occasional shout from far away. The old alien lay down on the mat, feeling a strange sense of peace. For the first time, he was not trembling with fear, not thinking constantly about being caught, punished, or humiliated. The human adjusted the small blanket, covering the old alien gently. "Sleep now. Tomorrow is a new day." The old alien closed his eyes. Memories of fear, hunger, and pain still lingered, but they were weaker now, replaced by something stronger: trust, safety, and hope. He drifted into sleep, feeling the human's presence near him like a shield. Hours passed. The market outside remained silent. The city's lights dimmed in the quiet night. The old alien slept deeply, untroubled for the first time in decades. The human stayed awake for a while, watching over him, ensuring no one would disturb this fragile peace. As the stars shone faintly through the small window, the old alien dreamed of freedom. He dreamed of a life where debts did not dictate his every step, where fear did not rule his mind, where kindness could exist. And in that dream, the human's presence was constant, unwavering, a reminder that even the smallest, weakest being could be protected, could matter, and could live. Morning would bring new challenges, new obstacles, and new dangers. But for now, the old alien slept safely, knowing someone believed in him, that someone would stand by him no matter what. And that simple truth, protection, trust, and care, was more powerful than any debt, any threat, or any fear he had ever faced.